We look forward to hearing from our brother Jon Thomas, who will be exhorting to the theme of one with God. To introduce his thoughts, Brother Jon has asked that we take a reading from John 17. We have come, have we not, brothers and sisters, to eat bread and drink wine, to remember our Lord. In order to prepare our hearts and minds, we ask our brother Jon Thomas to come forward and give us words of life and words of love to the theme, one with God. Thanks, Brother Jon.
Good morning, all. Not doing too bad, Benji. First time chairing. Nothing like having a room full of strangers for your first time. It's good that you're all strangers here because you're not all afraid like the Hunter Vallians are, because it's going to get into that age where it's great. When you get really old, you just say what you like and you just don't care anymore. And they think I'm going to say something like that again this morning. But this is actually a story which we're going to have a look at, if you want, right now at Revelation chapter 20. And it's a story that it's an answer, actually, to a question I was asked when I was in Bangladesh a while ago, actually quite a long while ago now. And I was talking to a young bloke, Shimanto was his name. I think he was probably, doing the last year of high school or first year of college, somewhere around that age, late teens. And he'd be having a bit of problem with all his friends because Bangladesh is like an 88% Muslim country. Most of his friends were Muslims. And they were like giving a hard time because they're going, talking about this. I'll start from, right? Then I saw thrones, and seated on them were those who had been given authority to judge. I also saw the souls of those who had been beheaded because of their testimony about Jesus, of the word of God. These had not worshipped the beast or his image and had refused to receive his mark on their forehead or hand. They came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is the one who takes part in the first resurrection. The second death has no power of them, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. Well, a wonderful, incredible promise. My answer was something along these lines. It probably wasn't that nuanced since it was, suddenly dropped on you. I said, it's not what you get, it's what you become. And what you become is this. You become one with God. The kingdom isn't about what you get, it's about this state that you are elevated to, in this state of being that is incredible and wonderful, is to be actually one with God. Have a look at Colossians chapter 2. This verse maybe tries to give that sense to us of what that oneness might actually look like. Colossians 2, verse 2. My goal is that their hearts, having been knit together in love. All right? So it's talking about the hearts of the people coming together in such a way they are knit together, they're joined one with each other, may be encouraged, and they may have all the riches that the assurance brings in the understanding of the knowledge of the mystery of God, namely Christ. And you could imagine that now, isn't it, on that sense that where we understand each other, we have this perfect connection with one another based on the understanding we get through the Bible, that we don't have anything between us. Our hearts are so close together, that understanding, the communion that we have because of this. And that's why it says in Ephesians that there is one God and Father of all, who is above all, through all, and in you all. That's how it should be, isn't it? Above and through and in you all. That's why become one with God. This is the sense that I want you to understand, that he wants us to understand that this is what is going to happen. John 14, let's have a look at John 14, verse 9. So this is an outward expression of how Jesus wanted to show that this is what was going on. And we have this, and we know this story probably quite well. But Jesus is talking to Philip. Starting verse 9, Jesus said unto him, have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that has seen me has seen the Father. And how sayest then, show us the Father? See, that's what it meant for God to be through all and in you all. Jesus said, that's so much me, 100% me, that when you see me, you see the Father. Isn't it going to be the same for us? That it's 100% that God is in us, through us, in that time of the kingdom. Believest me not that I am in the Father and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very works' sake. And the result of this, what is the result of this being like this? Come across now to John chapter 17, verse 13. He says, but now I'm coming to you, and I'm saying these things in the world so they may experience my joy completed in themselves. This whole chapter is about being one with God. And why? I experience that joy of that completion with God. And so it is that Jesus prayed as we come down to verse 20. I'm not praying only on their behalf, but also on behalf of those who believe in me through their testimony, that they will all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I'm you. I pray that they'll be in us so that the world will believe that you sent me. The glory you gave to me, I've given to them, that they may be one just as we are one. And there we have it, right? That's what it's all about. So if we are going to be ruling as kings and priests, is that what we really want in and of itself? I could make you a ruler today in today's world. You want to become the prime minister? You want to become the president? You'd be a fool, right? In itself, it's vacuous, empty. It's fraught with the problems of today's rulers. If that's what it was just becoming kings and priests, right? They're insecure, paranoid, they're unjust. Why? But to hold on to power, they've got to do things. They end up hating themselves because they've got to act with ways that are terrible. But instead, we will rule through and with the mind of Christ. You be executing the justice and mercy of Christ. No, of God himself. Because that's who you've become. That's what you love. That's what you really wanted, right? So it's not the reward. It's actually fitting that those who wanted to become one with God are there with God, and they're now becoming that extension of God to rule the world of the mortal population. It's just an extension of where you're heading. It's not a reward like, oh, thanks for the position. Yep, I got that one. I got that seat reserved. No, it's just the fact like you should become it because that is where you are at with your mind. That's who you want to become. And God showed us that, right? And he specifically chose his king, David, after his own heart. So aiming for this complete harmony in thought and practice, harmony in every project that we're working on. Great pleasure we'll take in restoring the earth at that time, right? Lining up the lame, making the blind to see, the deaf to hear. So when we talk about the kingdom of God, we do focus a lot on the physical aspect, and that is correct because it is such a wonderful thing. So, and we talk about the changes that will come, such as in Psalm 72. It says, there'll be a handful of corn on the tops of the mountains. Amos 9 says, when the plowman will catch up to the reaper, the one who stomps the grapes will overtake the plant, the juice will run down the slopes, will flow down the hillsides. Let's turn up the classic one, Isaiah 35. So 35, reading from verse 1. Wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom like the crocus. This is ESV. Verse 2. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it. The majesty calf and the lion and the fatted calf together, and a little child shall lead them. Cow and the bear shall graze. The young shall lie down together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. The earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters can see. Wonderful verses, wonderful promises about the world that's going to come about. And so we see, God's creation is wonderful. Thing is, where does it exist? Does it exist in the physical? Does it exist in the spiritual, in the mental? Is it all one and the same or not? Let's try this exercise for a minute. So I want you to imagine in your head flower. Okay, or imagining a flower. Okay, flower, are you imagining? A daisy. That's excellent. I imagine a daisy too. One's white, center. Okay, so imagine that this flower is opening now. Okay, and you see out in your mind's eye, can you imagine now that you can see a bee coming and landing on this flower? Okay, and the bee, it collects the nectar, and now you can see in your mind's eye that it's going back to the hive, and there's a hive hanging off a branch of a tree, and they're making it into honey. Right, and as you're imagining this beehive hanging there, you can imagine a big bear coming through the forest, and it comes up and it sees that honey and it smashes it down and it rips it open and it eats that honey and it enjoys the honey. And so just by taking that mental picture, you can see that there is harmony in nature, that from the small things that flows through to the bigger and the bigger things, and everything works together wonderfully because God created it to be like that. So then, why is it that we cannot think that we would actually be able to have, if we can imagine that about God's nature in our heads, that we can have this kind of same mental connection with God, that our thoughts will flow in harmony just like God's nature flows? Sometimes it's hard to imagine that, right? That's what it's going to be like, right? It's like this. Sometimes the best relationships that we might actually have together in this life might be marriage, right? But we know that that's imperfect, right? But in the time of the kingdom, we're going to be connected in such a way that is beyond like the most intimate marriage connection that you can have, right? Might be a scary thought, right? Yes, Paul, might be that I and you have a much closer connection than you have with your wife. Then now that is a very scary thought, but it's something that will actually happen, right? Because how we will be. And so if that's how it is, we need to like think about then how does it affect us? Some years ago, I don't know how long ago it was, but used to be a fashion that general Christians would wear a rubber wristband emblazoned with WWJD. What would Jesus do? The idea being you'd see that and it'd be like, a useful spot check to remember, oh yeah, what would Jesus do in this situation? That was the idea, right? And that is useful as a thing. But we need to adjust our thinking to actually go, I always am praying to keep that clarity and to find a way when it is unclear. Because this thing of becoming one with God, that's exactly what it's about. Everything in the rest of the Bible, honestly, everything else is just case studies and telling you what it means to be in harmony with God, to become one with God. That's all it is. Because if you don't understand what it's about, here's a whole bunch of stuff written for you to understand what it means to be one with me, right? That oneness was lost in the beginning in the Garden of Eden. And now here's what it means to come back to me. Let this mind be in you, said Jesus. not the mind that's easily provoked to anger, not the mind that has emotional outbursts based on our own without consideration for others. It's about thinking, how would God come at this? And so it's useful for us, like this morning, this week, to elevate our mind's eye, with the idea that if you look over everything in our lives, how will this mesh with God? Right? Are the choices we're making really walking in the direction Jesus walked? Is it bringing us praise? Are the choices we make that promote and sustain unity with God? Everything from the way for families we pack our school lunches in the morning to the way we spend our evenings when we're at home. It might be surprising what we discover when you think about, well, the way I've been ordering my life, that's really my oneness with God. I view that. I know I've got plenty of things that are like that, and it's just like it's things that need to change there. And everything with this, it ceases to be, I do this because it's the right thing to do, and becomes, this is God's way. I really appreciate God's way because I know that this is the true joy and happiness and peace, and I appreciate his ways. I am being with God. This is why I'm doing this, not because it's the right thing to do, because I appreciate it. That's what he's looking for in the kingdom, those who've appreciated it, right? And so that, that mind of God, so when we work with our fingers, is that mind of God connect to us so that what we do is literally like the work of God. Because this is the end result. At the opening of the temple, it was said this in 2 Chronicles. If you're close to Revelation, go to Revelation 21. Back in Chronicles is this, but will God indeed with man on the earth? So this is talking about the temple. He realizes that, behold, heaven and the highest heaven cannot contain you. How much less this house that I have built? So the recognition that God fills the universe, and, a house built with human hands is a bit ridiculous, right? God doesn't come and live in a house like that, doesn't live in a temple on earth. But look at this, Revelation 21. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, with man. He will dwell with them and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. Right? That changes in the kingdom, doesn't it? God dwells right with us once again, as he did with that closest he actually had with Adam and Eve in the beginning when he walked with them in the garden. So we become part of God. So just coming back to Isaiah 35, if you still have that, sorry, and I'll need you to hold on to that. Skipped over a couple of verses there. We talked about the physical restoration of the earth and how wonderful that would be. 5, it says, then the eye blind shall be opened, the ears of the deaf unstopped, and shall the lame man leap like a deer, and the tongue of the mute sing. Right? So the kingdom is about this restoration of people. And if we want to be part of that kingdom, we want to also be restoring hearts and minds to be together with us. That's what it's about. Right? Being that a follower of Jesus is just so different to the world. The world really doesn't care. There's a few groups here and there, but mostly they're pretty much religious based. Because the outlook of Jesus was so different 2,000 years ago, and it is our hope and our desire now to be like that and follow in that way that is completely at odds with what the world wants. Right? And that's what it says in John 17, doesn't it? It says that the world despised them because they didn't understand that this was the way of true joy, peace, happiness. So let's go to Colossians 3 and verse 12. Actually, Colossians 3 and verse 11. It says, here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, patience. Yeah. We struggle, don't we, to make our relationships work in this life, to be able to be knit together in love like we discussed before, and that is what we're seeking always to become, and that's the struggle that's with us. It infuriates us, it aggravates us because we can't reach to these things, can we? Right? As it tells us, bearing with one another. And if one has a complaint once together, forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you are called in one body. Be thankful. That seeking to be one. We aiming and we're learning. And that's why, brothers and sisters, we have this bread and wine, because we can't reach to it. But it's exactly why Jesus, after he prayed in John 17, he went out to the Garden of Gethsemane and then to the cross. Is why he prayed, Father, may they be one. Went and offered himself up on that cross so that it would be possible